Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 75 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Okay, let's set this up. I don't want to worry too much about it, but I want to give you a rough idea on how I'm going to lay out this scotia in terms of what I'm going to do to get ready and make a pattern to do it. And I want to just show you real quick. I hope that doing this the long way, because realistically, you're not going to do, I know I should have the suction on for the dust, get over it. The wind's blowing pretty good. To cut this base like this, honestly, this is not the way anybody's done it for decades, because you'd take and run several cuts with the diamond saw, and it would be the easy way to do it. What we're going to do is we're going to lay this out, and I wanted to show you, this is another instance of using homemade tools. And you can use a pair of pliers, but this is I can't use this very accurately to loosen this screw and go down here to mark this, because to mark this perimeter, to go up 5/8 of an inch and put a line around here, it's not smart to use this line that we cut, because it isn't absolutely perfectly flat like either the joint or this top that was diamond sawed. And so we'll use, grab my pencil. So instead of using this square, what we'll do, because we could cut that and lower it down, but I've only got just a short, maybe an inch that it clears, and that's not ideal because it tends to tip. So what we're going to use instead, this is my wrench for doing my calipers, and for my big calipers, this is my big bevel square, and I made it out of a piece of an old carpenter's square piece of wood. Cut it off on the bandsaw, on the table saw, and just squared it up, cut a slot down the middle of it, works just great. And this, the nice thing about this is you can kind of configure it however you want it to be. We'll reverse that so the point's on the inside, and we can set this up to the height we want it. Now I'm going to go ahead and measure just one spot here. I'm going to come up 1/2 inch, go to 5/8. Then we can set this up to get it right where we want it to be. And you can check it if you want to make sure that it's really square. You can, try to square it up really well with square as you like. With that right there, then we'll take our wrench. These wrenches, they're not hard to make. You drill a hole and saw it out a little bit. For your wing nuts and your compasses, they're just great. Again, it's all shop made tool. Now I can take my square, and I can mark a few lines on here. And then I can take my straight edge and draw a nice line all the way around. Once we start doing this, we'll have our line. I'm going to tip this line just like I did before. I'll tip this edge here down to that line. I may cut in just a little bit, but I'll try to tip to it to create an edge instead of cutting a line, because if I tip to this, especially if I can tip it a little bit to get the bulk off with a 9-point, then I'll go in with a bush chisel with like a 5-blade or a 7-blade bush chisel, and it'll be really gentle on the edge. The smaller blades will not take off as much stone. You're just taking off dust, and that'll help produce a really strong edge, and we really want that strong edge. And then we'll have an edge, and we can bevel down to that edge to where we've got that line, and then we can go straight in with our chisel to carve it. And it's not how you have to do it, but it's a smart way of doing it. But now I've got some lines on here. I can lay a straight edge on there and strike a line. I'll go all the way around the whole thing. I like to get, usually these carpenter squares are pretty thin, and this is one of the heavier ones. They're just old junk carpenter squares, man. You can buy them for nothing, you know, $5 or whatever. And you can cut them carefully if you want to use the actual numerals on it and the dimensions, but then, you know, if you don't have to. I don't use them, but you'll use this big, especially if you do any type of finish work or fancy tops or any types of transfer. You use this so much, it's just crazy. So, but I'll put a line on here. I still got to saw this in. When I saw this in, I'm going to stay to the outside of the edge. I'm going to try to preserve that red line so I've got a good reference that I know I'm doing right. And I'll saw that all in. And we've got to make our patterns, because we've got to have this pattern that curves down and transits this corner, which is going to approximately be where we're going to end up. And we'll get this all laid out, and it'll be great. Let's cut some stone. All right, this is me being honest. Like I said, you never make a mistake. Sawed these perimeter. Everything looked pretty good. And I leaned over, made the last cut. Cut on the wrong line. So I had to move it over. This is a fat 1/4 inch, so it's not the end of the world. But you got to pay attention. You get comfortable, and you'll end up cutting where you're not supposed to. So I'll make a pattern. It'll fit the front 3 sides. The back side will have a little deeper scotia. No big deal. If I wanted to, I could push the line in. It's not going to be the end of the world on this job. But those things happen. You got to pay attention. That's why you try to think. But I got confused. We had enough lines here, and I set this on, and I cut a little bit, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not, and I should have been over here. So that's reality. I could lie and hide it up. Never tell you. You'd never know the difference. I want you to know I'm just a regular guy doing this work. You get tutored all the time. So I went around, laid a line on the bottom of those cuts. I'm going to saw that off. It'll be all good. Back to work. right, those are all cut off. And this small difference on the back will just disappear. Nobody will ever know. You don't tell them. What I'm going to do is, because it's late, because the light's horrible, I wanted to do some more work. I don't want to start cutting metal patterns this late. I want to do that in the morning. I'm going to start taking some of this off. Now, it's very tempting, front and right side. It's very tempting to say, hey, this blade is almost that same shape. I'll just cut this all the way in, down here, and I'll make a bunch of deep cuts. Stripe, 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 stripe. And we'll take all that out really easy. Well, what'll end up happening is you go just a little bit too deep with one cut. You have a big stripe. You want to get rid of it, you got to push the whole face back. And if you're already stressed and out of time, try to do it with a saw. And you cut another one that's a little bit too deep. And you'll end up chasing that thing and whittling it until it disappears. So I'm going to cut some cuts just to open it, just to block it. But I'm not going to get anywhere near the base of this special cut, the important reference cut. Then we'll work on tapering all this. We've got to taper this bottom as well. But I want to just go do some of this. This is easy work to do at the end of the day. It's not complicated. And it should go just fine. And I'll get that cleaned up. We'll get at least one, if not 2 or 3 of these sides wrapped up. First thing I'll do is take the push chisel. Yeah. See, like this. We'll go down this edge and tip it. And that'll just put it bevel to where it'll hopefully hold a little better and won't be as likely to break. Okay. Put some stone in the bushing. Let's go. Sawing these in to stay up, we can very easily use a chisel and just push these off and bully them off. Depending on if you're on the run of the rift, it can dig really bad. You don't want that. You want this to maintain control. So I'm going to use just a 9-point. I also stayed up on this corner. We got to come in on the corner the same way we did before, so we don't blow this up, because we got to start thinking about permanent real estate right here that we're going to keep that miter. Okay? So we're going to very carefully trim this corner. And then we'll develop that in conjunction with this other guy. Cut them narrow, walk them out, get them off real fast. It's also really important to keep track of your saw, because right here, the body's not going to hit anything because it's been clearing. Now it'll go way deep into there and ruin it. Over here, it'll only go so deep because it hits the body. You got to pay attention. It's safer to work this direction, but I'm sitting here, all my tools stuck here, so I'm going to work from right here. big benefit of doing these reference lines, it takes a long time. Having saw cuts made down into this for the diamond saw, you know, at the plant would have been, you know, saved us a lot of labor. But you've got to know how to be able to do this, so when you do nice work, you're not just in there grinding and searching and hoping you hit a straight line or a flat surface or whatever. You've got to be able to make it on purpose. And far too many people are on the internet just grinding away, making tons of dust, and if they hit where they're looking for, it's lucky. And then they throw it in the sandblast booth and, you know, give it a shot and try to level it up and smooth it up. No, you should be able to do it all the way with hand tools, you know, powered hand tools, whatever, and not just spend all your time grinding and approximating. You ought to be able to cut it and make it happen. While I'm in position, we're down to the end on it. I'm going to go ahead and work this down to this line while I'm sitting here, and we'll just go slowly down here and get all this ready. I don't think I'm going to cut the scotia yet. I want to push that down, and then we've got just this extra material to take down. You got to be really careful here at the end because we're getting into important stuff. So these corners, I'm going to cut these off with really sharp chisels, and I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do that right now. 4:30, I'm tired. I'm just trying to do some work to get something accomplished while I'm here. I'm going to do this, get this bevel down. Nice push chisel. And make sure my two blades are good and sharp and not dull so it doesn't run off. But a wider tool is good here because you'll skip off the edge and scar that up. So we'll get this tipped really well, and then we should be able to cut straight in, and then we can start working on our whole bevel, and turning the bevels into a scotia. 9-point shot too. While I'm sitting here, I'm going to go ahead, I tipped this edge, I'm going to go ahead and start wasting this bottom portion off as well. Once you connect these two areas, okay, I don't like to just advance that area. I'd rather go over about a tool's width and cut another line because it's easier to keep track of whether your plane is straight or skewed if you do that. Once this looks pretty good, I can push this down faster because it fractures off easy because it's not supported, and it also can blend it and make it balanced out, make it look better. So that's just something when I'm stripping out stone to do a panel, I prefer to skip like that than to just advance along, because if you just advance here and everything you cut just goes into that, you'll end up running in or running out a lot more than you can do it by skipping. When you're using a 9-point, you just have to stay there and let the tool bounce. You don't hold it at all. You just kind of corral it. And when you lift off the stone, you can either grab it or you can just put your finger against it to support it and hold it. So it's out where it's not going to bounce out. But you don't hold it and let it work. You let it bounce and let it go. That's why I like a 1/2-inch square versus a 5/8, because a 5/8 it takes a lot more tool to make it bounce and make it run good. Let the tool down and just support it. I'll get this fairly consistent, so when I start cutting my scotia, I can curve it, and then skip and do the same thing. It's just generally what I do. Okay, now for something totally different. I know I'm working on that base, but you know, that doesn't stop the world from happening. And so I've got a few stones we can come in, and we've got to panel stuff in order to remove names so the stone can be used again with a different name. And that's got a lot to do with the state of the market right now, where we're fixing stones instead of replacing. So this panel was flat. I had a name in here. Sawed it in, broke it out, 9-pointed it down just to get it straightened out. But this stone, the letters are blown at least 1/2 inch deep, and whoever blew the V line around the edge didn't even go 1/4 inch deep. So I've got to take this and put a scotia on it and run this down from where the sandblast line was. Just see this line right along here. That's how deep the sandblast was. And I'll scrape that at the end, but I got to be really careful not to get up into this edge. So this is one of those instances where I won't be able to cut that square transition to go down in like I talked about, because then I'll get onto this edge and I'll mark it up, and that's not ideal. It's not what they want. So we'll scrape this up to this line really close. But I just wanted to show you, sometimes things come in and you just got to work with them the way they are. Saw this in, I left the narrow edge around, took a 3-blade, and I scraped it. You have to be careful not to dig with the heel down in here, and you got to go deeper on the panel. That helps collapse this top off. Then I take my ripper and I go right on here. You see where I've broken it here? Got some lines in there. Then it makes it real easy, because everything's been relieved, that I can take either a square chisel or a round chisel and just push it straight down in. Turn my chisel to do a scotia at the very bottom and get that cone that I need. Then I'll go through, clean it all up with this. And at the very end, we scrape everything together after we get the ground scraped and axed, and then we'll scrape and we'll make sure everything matches all the way up around here. We'll get rid of any of these little bitty lines. Sometimes, you can see on the end really easy here where it's blue from being sandblasted and then it's white from me cutting it. So I'll have to scrape that and be careful, but I don't want to get on this edge because I don't want to start changing it. They've already done the layout, we've got to leave it the way it is. So this is money. This is how you do this, people. That's why I'm showing you all this board finish and stuff, because this stuff will come in and you'll put money in your pocket, cutting a stone, doing something like this, and then when you need to do it on your important work, there won't be any problem. All right, let's get this wrapped up so I can dive back into that base. Before I move off this job here, I want to show you also, this isn't a problem that's as common now because of the way I order my stones, but if you order a polished stone, this is mostly for people that are in the industry doing granite work. You order a polished stone and they go ahead and do the sandblast typically before they send it to you to carve it. Sometimes if you've got a niche, it's really good to have them blow it in to break the polish. You don't have to cut the polish, because when you cut it, you'll typically have all these little stuns along the edge. You've got to brick it or rub it to smooth it up. If they blow the polish off, that's really great, because they can just knock the polish off. You don't have to cut through it, and you can get a cleaner line. The problem is if they blow a line down in and go around, and this is a good way to show it. We used to get a lot of dies in, depending on what the manufacturer was, and they'd blow a hard V line around the niche on the interior, especially if they had a border like this. They'd blow the outside V line and the inside V line, and then this would be carved away just like I'm doing, except it'd have some sculpture work in it. The problem is, it's hard to see, is that sandblast will erode underneath the edge, and it makes it impossible to scrape it to the top and get rid of those pits that are a different color without losing dimension on this. And if you've got a spec, this is supposed to be a ½ inch or a quarter or 3/8 or whatever, you could end up losing half of that dimension to clean this up if you have something chipped. Then you have to go around the entire border to narrow it up to make it even. So this one will work out. It'd be okay because we're just doing the name, but this is a real problem when you're doing a carving, and so that's why we cut that nice square line and make it look good, because this erosion is essentially impossible to get rid of without cutting this back. And it's nice to think I could just go back a little bit, but you'll have one deep pit, and I'll take that whole edge back, and it's a train wreck. Just wrapped up. Over here on this side where I've got a better reach, because the way this stone's set up, I can't reach that other side. That's why I was doing it in phases. Over here, I cut it in, and I can go down in really careful, work my way away from this edge so I don't grab it with a chisel. You just have to be careful, because when you're going and you get into a rhythm, you'll lift up, and you'll hit it, and you'll hit it, and you'll hit it, and then you'll go over like this and pop a big piece out. So you don't want to do that. Go slow, you stop and catch your breath and think about it, and then push it again, and then push it again. Don't go fast. Don't go like this, think that just this side's going to break, because invariably something will break on this side. Even if it doesn't come off right now, you'll fracture it, and then when you're scraping it, it'll just fall out. That ain't cool. Panel work. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. Time's got to be close. We'll just end it with a panel that y'all weren't ever expecting to see, but that's the way life goes, because when stones show up, you got to get done. So put these, usually they just go in line, but these came in. There's one yesterday, another one today, and so nice hand axe panel. Don't grind your panels, axe them. Even if you grind them back, because you can't run a hand machine, learn how to axe them, make them look pretty. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.